Democracy itself is in peril, here at home and around the world. What we do now, how we honor the memory of the fallen, will determine whether or not democracy will long endure. We all take it for granted.
President Biden giving his first Commander-in-Chief speech on this Memorial Day 2021. Let's bring in our panel. Mollie Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee congressman and CEO of Empowerment and Inclusion Capital. And Steve Hayes, editor of The Dispatch. Panelists, welcome. We've got an all-star panel for a national holiday. Steve, let's take a listen to another clip from President Biden, and I want to get your thoughts.
Democracy thrives when the infrastructure of democracy is strong. When people have the right to vote freely and fairly and conveniently, our democracy is imperfect. It always has been. But Americans of all backgrounds, races, creeds, gender identities, sexual orientations, have long spilled their blood to defend our democracy. The diversity of our country and of our armed services is and always has been an incredible strength.
Steve, did he sound like Commander-in-Chief there, or did he sound like he was speaking to his base?
You know, a little bit of both. If you look back at Memorial Day addresses from presidents of both political parties, they've used this theme frequently. Basically, we need to live up to the sacrifices that those who are fallen and came before us have made. And I think that theme was prominent throughout Joe Biden's speech. Obviously, what he was doing was speaking specifically to the fights over voting right now, and clearly made a case that will appeal to his base, I think, framed in the sort of broader language of traditional Memorial Day speeches.
I spoke with a Republican congressman who started early in his career as a United States Marine. Here are his thoughts, Congressman Mike Bost, on Memorial Day.
It's so much more than just a 3-day long weekend. You've got to remember that the Gold Star moms and the Gold Star dads, the spouses of those people who have fallen to given the other ultimate sacrifice, that's what this weekend is about. And that's what we need to remember.
Mollie, your thoughts on the president's speech today and the contrast there with the Republican congressman?
Well, I actually think that the President Biden speech did deal with some of that. When he talked about the importance of living up to the sacrifice that people have made, and talking even about democracy being in peril, I thought was interesting. It's true that it's in peril both here and abroad, and I think it's really incumbent upon people to think through why that is. We have a real crisis of institutions globally and in this country where people who were charged with handling a lot of really important, serious issues mismanaged those, and it has led to a breakdown in trust with the people, and that's not a good situation, whether it was about too big to fail in the financial crisis, years ago, the situation at the border, which Biden right now is mismanaging, which is leading to a crisis of confidence with people, or also with how we have handled wars in recent decades. It's not the job of our military to build democracy abroad. We had a period of time where we thought that was the job of the military. We need to be really clear on when it is okay to ask people to sacrifice their lives for this country, when it is in our national interest, and how we prosecute those wars, making sure that we do it wisely and that we have clear objectives, and that when we finish those objectives, that we get people home. We need to take the sacrifice that people make very seriously and not thinking smartly about our war strategy, making sure that our interests are focused on and that we are thinking about where to prosecute those interests is not good, and it leads to a breakdown of trust with the American people.
Harold, your thoughts on President Biden's first Memorial Day as Commander-in-Chief?
Absolutely. Look, I agree with a lot of that's been said. I do think, in fairness to President Biden, who I traveled with when he was a U.S. Senator to the Middle East on multiple occasions, his declarations of our nation's courage and purpose and steadfastness in the face of challenge, and I thought the way he framed democracy versus autocracy, he in many ways was not only speaking to Americans, asking us to honor the fallen and brave in our country who've sacrificed for our freedoms. I think he called us all children of sacrifice. He was speaking to a global community as well, and laying out, I thought, in a very interesting and I hope way that connected with communities of people around the globe who live under autocracy. In many ways, I'm reminded a little bit of the speech that President George W. Bush gave in one of his inaugural addresses, where he laid out the notion of freedom and democracy and the challenge we face around the globe. I thought this was the 4.0 version of it with Joe Biden. In addition, I think there's no doubt there was a little political edge to it, as Steve said, and it's probably not too untraditional for a president to lay out a little bit of his message. We'll one day say her, but a little bit of his message in the broader message of why this day is so important and why it stands out amongst American holidays.
Harold, I want to follow up with you as the former elected official on the panel. A tweet on Saturday from Vice President Kamala Harris where she says, "Enjoy the long weekend." So it seems to me that that may have been an unforced error on her part and staff too.
Yeah, I think she found herself in the last day or two with the president, like maybe the last 3 days with the president, her and her husband, celebrating what we have come to benefit from, we as a nation, from our fallen and brave heroes. I think she probably would want it back if she could get it back. But I think if you look at her and her record and her heart, I don't think there's any question of her understanding of the importance of the day and the importance of what this means to our freedoms and liberty as we know it. And I thought President Biden, again, he's the leader, he's the commander-in-chief, and he's whose words I think resonate most with Americans.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.